Welcome to Through the Hurricane. I'm Kathleen Kane, the first woman elected Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Have you ever looked down and seen the pieces of your life on the floor and wondered what happened? You haven't just been through a storm, you've been through a hurricane. Sometimes we think that we'll never have joy, we'll never have love again, we'll never have a normal life again. But Through the Hurricane will teach you that the power of love and resistance and the human mind can do anything. We all experience a hurricane, but the human spirit is indestructible. This is Through the Hurricane. Let's walk through the storm together. In this episode, you're going to hear the sensational story of the power of lemonade. Welcome to Through the Hurricane. I'm your host, Kathleen Kane. Today's episode is the first part of a two-part special segment. Our guest, Liz Scott, is the co-founder, along with her husband, Jay, of Alex's Lemonade Stand. In the first segment, Liz is going to tell us all about the original founder of Alex's Lemonade Stand, their little girl, Alex. To know who Alex truly was will make what she did even more amazing. Welcome to Through the Hurricane. I'm your host, Kathleen Kane. I usually do an introduction for our guest, and today we have Liz Scott. She's all the way from Philadelphia. Thank you for making such a long trip in the snow in the Northeast, Liz.
My pleasure.
Liz's story, she can tell it on her own because we have so much to cover. I want to dive right in. Just short background. Liz is the co-founder, along with her husband, Jay, of Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. Their boss is their 8-year-old daughter, Alex. Alex passed away almost 20 years ago? 21 years ago from neuroblastoma, a childhood cancer. From there, Liz and Jay have an incredible story. But first, we want to get to know Liz, and more importantly, we want to get to know Alex, because I think sometimes when we look at these foundations, we as just regular people going about our daily lives, we don't actually see the human being behind them. And this human being is awesome. Liz, take it away. Tell me about Alex.
Where do I start? So Alex was our second child. So we have 3 sons. So her older brother, Patrick, is just 15 months older than her. And then we have 2 younger sons who were 2.5 years younger than her and 5 years younger than her.
You were busy.
Yes, we were busy. When Alex was 2 days shy of her first birthday, she was diagnosed with neuroblastoma and would go on to really fight cancer the rest of her life. But she was just a little girl. Mm-hmm. She was a little girl who, unfortunately, never really knew a life without fighting her cancer, but still went on to thrive in so many ways in terms of bringing so much joy to others and making sure she had joy in her own life, but also what she accomplished in her life to help other children with cancer.
Yeah. So let's talk about Alex as a baby. Were there any warning signs that she had neuroblastoma?
There definitely were. So she was a really colicky newborn, and then she had that nice middle phase where they stop fussing and you start to see their personality between 4 and 8 months. But around 9 months, she started regressing in terms of her colicky behavior and was, at an age where I saw my older son had been trying to explore and, wanted to be all over the place. She wanted to be held. She didn't sleep very well. She started losing weight. And that was around the time we kept bringing her to the doctor and just kept saying something's not right with her. And essentially for 3 months, brought her to the doctor at least weekly. And finally on a visit, I'll never forget, because we were young parents, so we were, at the time, I want to say 27 and 28, and had 2 young children. And I went to see the doctor yet again, and he looked at me and he said, "Did you have your other son?" And because it was a new doctor for our family, did you have your other son at the doctor's a lot? And I said, no, he was a happy baby. And he said, well, you need to accept the fact that she's not a happy baby.
Oh, my God.
And I left in tears, and I actually drove. We owned a coffee shop at the time. I drove to the coffee shop and, told my husband, like, there's something wrong with me. I can't accept her. And just didn't know where to turn at that point because I felt like it was me that was the problem. And I couldn't accept that she was cranky and that, like, did I want something to be wrong with her? Why was I so insistent something was wrong with her? And honestly thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't sleeping because
Yeah.
of having 2 young children, and she didn't sleep well. And then he ended up deciding to close. It was really busy running your own business, to close the coffee shop that weekend and stay home. And he was holding her the whole weekend. And by Sunday, he said, is this, like, he would see her at night when she would kind of be going to bed and be fussy. And he
Right.
said, is this what you're talking about? I said, yes. She's like this all the time. And he was like, let's call the doctor. And I called, and I got the doctor on call. And he said, this is sending up red flags. Go to the emergency room.
Oh, thank God.
So we went to the emergency room, and still they were kind of dismissing us a little bit.
As
I don't know if it was
hysterical
our
parents.
age, or what, but my mom met me there, and I'm one of 9.
Oh.
And she had a bunch of grandkids by that time too. And when the doctor was like, I'm just not sure, and then he looked at my mom and he said, what do you think? And she said, I think there's something wrong with her.
Wow.
There's something going on here.
Yeah.
And they ended up admitting her, really based on my mom saying that.
Really?
Yes.
But why did it have to take your mom?
I don't
After
know.
3 months, all those doctor visits. I mean, we know our kids, right? We know when something's wrong. Why doesn't anyone accept that? Especially, I mean, doctors. I hate to say that, but
I agree.
Right?
So she ended up getting admitted, and very quickly it was a different story. They
Yeah.
said she doesn't have reflexes in her legs. Have you had her? When was the last time she saw a doctor? And then I felt like they thought we had been neglecting her, but they very quickly learned about all the visits we had made and told us they thought she had something growing on her spine, and did an MRI, and that's how we found out that she had it.
How long did it take them from the emergency room to diagnose her?
Just a couple of days.
Oh,
It was
that's
really
good.
about getting everyone in to examine her and then scheduling the MRI. It was just
Right.
a couple of days.
Geez, that had to have been, you went from what you thought was a colicky baby and that it was you, not her being ill, to, oh my God, she now has cancer.
Yes, and in fact, they told us it was a tumor and that she would need surgery. And still, I wasn't thinking cancer. I understand so much more now, but I didn't really know very many people who had cancer at that point in my life. I was very fortunate for that, and I certainly didn't know very many children who had cancer or tumors,
And
really.
that young.
That young. So we just thought, okay, well, she's got something growing, and they'll just, take it
Yeah.
out. And then they told us they were putting us on the oncology floor.
Oh, boy.
And I said, what? Why? That's not where we belong. Why are we going to the cancer floor? And that's when it was actually a nurse who, we were in the room, and I said, I understand why we're here. And that's when I learned how amazing nurses are. And she talked me through why we were there.
Oh, boy.
And then I realized that we were talking about cancer, not
Wow.
just a growth on her spine.
Right, exactly. That would be taken out, she would be fine,
Life would
and
go on.
life would go
Yes.
on, right? And now all of a sudden, and you're right, thank God for nurses. So at that point, you were living in Connecticut, right?
Yes, we both grew up just outside Hartford, Connecticut.
And you had a business there, you were raising your family there, your family, extended family, most of them were still in Connecticut?
Yes, and my husband's one of 5, I'm one of 9. We had a lot of family in the entire area.
Yeah. Now, at a certain point, you moved to Philadelphia. How did that happen?
So just when most children are diagnosed with cancer, there's a protocol, as they call it, and the protocol is designed to get the child to a cure. And that protocol for most cancers is going to be the same at any hospital. And in her case, we were at Hartford, Connecticut Children's Medical Center. We had a wonderful doctor there, a wonderful team there. And we went through all the known cures for 3 years. And they would work, and then they'd stop working. And then they would do surgery to remove the tumor. And after essentially 3 years of doing this, her cancer just started to grow quickly and relentlessly. And it was spreading now to her bones. She was having pain. And her doctor in Connecticut had tried calling, we had been to Boston, we'd been to New York, long story short, they all said there's really nothing else we can do. So we ended up, it was really pre-internet. It was 1999,
wow.
pre really good information on the internet. And we ended up calling a doctor in Philadelphia, among other doctors, and he told us he had an experimental treatment that he thought might help her. And he didn't say he could cure her, but he thought we could get some more time and that it would be less toxic. She could have maybe good quality of life on it. So we jumped at the opportunity and we ended up traveling to Philadelphia. We did that for about a year because the treatment worked well for her. And then we decided to move our family there.
Yeah, that had to have been such a tough call to be, that's where your roots are. That's where your support system is. That's where Alex was born. I mean, I told you the story of when we moved back into our townhouse. That's where those boys were born and we brought them home to. And I was like, it's emotional. I went back and saw his little room.
It was, at the time we made the decision, it seemed like an easy decision because we had been traveling and it's very hard. To be away from the other kids that much, we couldn't always bring them.
Right.
And my husband was a commissioned salesman. His territory was in Connecticut. So, he would stay back often to work so we could, have money to support ourselves.
Right.
And after a really long, tough trip, I started making day trips to Philly. So we'd go and then we'd get back in the car and we'd drive back. And it's, on a good day, it's 4 hours, but it's never 4 hours. It's 5 or 6. This particular day, I just, with everything, I guess I got on the Garden State Parkway going south.
Oh, no.
And I didn't realize it for an hour. So we ended up getting home at 2 a.m. and just knew something wasn't working. And it was very, magical that it was within a couple weeks, my husband's boss called and said, how would you like the Philadelphia territory, which was really no overnight travel. And it was a much better territory for medical book sales. So it felt like it was meant to be. And we said yes, and we moved our family. But I would say it didn't really, set in. Maybe that's a benefit of being young.
Right.
I wasn't overthinking things like I do now.
You're right.
Until we were literally moving and I realized what we were leaving with our support. And it wasn't just family, it was my neighbor and our friends who were there to help with our other children. We were moving to a place where we didn't know anyone.
And that's difficult under any situation. We have, my niece is a nurse practitioner at CHOP. And they are talking a lot about moving back here. They have great jobs. She loves her career. And yet she said, we don't want them to grow up without family. They come here and we have aunts and uncles to watch them and we can have more of a life and they can have more of a family. And it's a tough decision for her, and that's just under a normal circumstance. I mean, taking a sick child and moving all the way on your own, it had to have been really hard.
It was hard. It was, I remember, leaving and my mom gave me some tchotchke for the new house. And I was sort of laughing about it. And then as soon as we got in the car and I pulled away with the kids, Jay had moved a couple months before, I just started crying. And I think I cried off and on the whole way because I realized I wasn't worried for myself, but I thought, she was very sick. And I thought, are we awful for taking her and my other kids away from their family at a time when we might need them the most, and she might be dying, and it's sooner than later. But we just thought it was the right thing to do for our kids, but also for Alex to see if we could try more things. They told us we would have to be there more to try some other options for treatment for her, and the only option was to be there more often because it required it, because it was experimental, so we couldn't. All the follow-up had to be done. So, but it was, I would say it was one of the best decisions we ever made.
Oh, that's good.
She lived 3.5 years after that, and 3 of them were her best years.
So your wrong turn down the Garden State Parkway,
that's true.
Actually.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, kind of. It was like, no, Liz, this is where you're going now, and this is the way it's going to be, and of course, I say this. I just can't even imagine when you're put into this situation. And you and I talked about this at lunch, and I said, that had to have been so hard for you. And we were talking about even just getting ready to go to Alex's funeral, and you said, no, it wasn't, because this is what we had to do, and this is what our life was, and we didn't dwell on the fact, we just did it. And that's when you said that to me, I thought, man, she is one tough cookie. I really like her. I wish we were friends since high school because we would definitely be, you and I are a lot alike. And I feel the same way. I mean, you have such hard choices to make in life sometimes, and you just don't know whether they're going to be the right choice. But I feel like when that doctor said to you in Connecticut, there's nothing more that we can do, probably your first thought was, hell no, there's way more we can do, and we're going to show you exactly what we can do.
I think, I remember the moment. I don't know, he was we just saw him last year. He's long retired now. He was such a loving doctor, and he was so heartbroken that there was nothing else to do. But, right, I don't think we left thinking this is it, right, obviously, or we wouldn't have pursued, I think I talked to doctors in various places across the country. Philadelphia was the closest, and we liked what he had to say. But I think it was more that I'm not even going to call it desperation, that feeling of being terrified that we were going to lose her kind of kicks you into survival mode. And we were doing what we needed to do to help her survive and really to help our family survive.
How was Alex at that point? So now she's around 3 years old, right?
Yes.
What did she like to do? Did she like to play? Did she sleep well at that point? Was she, an adventurous child, or was she more introspective?
So she was about 4 at this point. She was a little bit of everything. It's very hard to describe her. When she was having a good day, she was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And she liked to do, probably not surprisingly, a lot of the same things I like to do. We spent so much time together. So we would read together on a quieter day. Mm-hmm. I would read to her. We read all the Little House on the Prairie books. Oh, wow. Together. But with her brother, she could get a little rowdier depending on the brother, mm-hmm, where they might have a little dance party or be out in the backyard. And, she couldn't really walk. She was paralyzed from the first surgery. So she had worked really hard to be able to, she would play goalie on her knees in the backyard to be able to manage to get around. But when she was up for it and she was strong, she would want to do those sorts of things. When she was having a tougher day, she would sit on the couch and maybe watch TV or play Spider Solitaire. She was pretty quiet. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of my kids were as younger children, and she didn't particularly like that kind of attention. Oh. She didn't like people sort of falling all over her.
Yeah.
I don't know if it made her uncomfortable or she was a little shy, so it made her uncomfortable. She liked the kind of attention where you could sit down and talk and have fun and play with her,
right,
or do an activity with her, but she didn't want to be the center of attention. Yeah. And a lot of people think she did, and that she was sort of this, loud, outgoing lemonade person. But at her lemonade stand, she was in charge, but she was very quietly in charge.
Yeah. I saw the video of Alex at the lemonade stand, and I saw the video of her with Oprah, which I play in my mind over and over. But at the lemonade stand, she didn't look like she was a loud child. You can get that just from looking at her. Mm-hmm. She has this sweet face, and she you could tell that she's more introspective, quiet. But inside, it's like, this is what my goal is. I don't need to shout it to the whole world.
Right.
I'm going to get it done, and I'm going to be me. And you could see that in her face in that video.
Yeah, she was very, she passed when she was 8, and I feel like she was still a little kid, and she liked Pokemon, and, she wanted to see the Pokemon movie as soon as it came out, and she liked a lot of the things. She loved American Idol, and she really liked fashion and going shopping and accessorizing. She really liked accessorizing. I know. She did not get it from me. I'm trying.
I don't accessorize either. I'm trying as well.
But she had this other facet to her that was very sensitive and introspective and taking in everything around her, mm-hmm, but also just very committed to being herself. And, I always tell this funny story because, my husband is a big teaser, And, sometimes I want to have a really good comeback, but I can't always. I'm not as quick as him. Occasionally it happens, but she always did.
Oh, really?
And there was one day where I was pregnant with our youngest, and she was 7 at the time, and going on 7. And somebody sent us a swing. He's 5 years younger, so we had sort of decided we were giving away all our baby stuff. So my sister-in-law sent me their baby swing, and it just came in a box, no instructions, and it was disassembled. And he spent quite a long time trying to put it together. And he came downstairs and he was like, I can't put that thing together. Like, this is ridiculous, very frustrated. And she had been watching him. And then, we're downstairs, I think she's upstairs in her room playing, and we go up there, I don't know, maybe 4 to 5 minutes later, and the swing is put together.
No.
She's on her knees, and she says, and, Jay was like, Alex, and she was like, you gave up. You shouldn't give up when something's important. She's like, I just need a screwdriver.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
Yeah, it just showed us, like, that part of her that never gave up. And then the second part of that story was in the same time frame when I mentioned she couldn't walk. And it was also with my husband, sort of being a wise guy. She had been at the hospital, and one of her nurses had one leg. She had lost her leg as a child to cancer, and she was now this amazing oncology nurse for children, and one of the favorite nurses Alex had, and she was really fast. You push the button and there's Lisa. So Jay said to her, she had these hand crutches, Alex, what did you think about Lisa? She's like, yeah, she's good. She's great. She's great. He said, she's so fast. She said, yeah. And he said, well, wouldn't you like to use crutches like her? Because he had been telling her maybe she should use crutches. And she really didn't want to. And she said, why? And he said, because he said, you could be the fastest kid on the playground. And she said, if there's one thing you should know about me, she said, haven't you ever heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? And he was sort of thinking about it, and she said, slow and steady wins the race. And that's the moment. It was funny, right? Like laugh out loud funny. But that was the moment where I thought, good for you.
Right.
She was proud of who she was and maybe of what she had overcome, and she didn't need to be the fastest kid on the playground.
Right.
She could do things her way.
Right.
And it really spoke to me and about how she lived her life.
Yeah. Such a strong inner being she had. And I love that. I love that she didn't have to go out and do things that people expected of her or show them that she could use the crutches. She probably could, but she didn't want to. And she wasn't going to let anyone talk her into it. So good for her. At such a young age, I mean, we struggle with that.
Absolutely. I feel like that was a gift she gave me.
To
especially as we started the foundation with no experience running a nonprofit, and all the things you need to learn and do as the foundation has grown. I think of her, thinking you can do it. I can do it my way. Right. I can be myself and succeed at this.
You know what? When I first met you, that struck me about you. And on a side note, when I look at that picture of Alex in that video, I see you. I see your face.
Yeah, everyone always said we looked a lot alike.
That's amazing. That's adorable. But I thought the very same thing about you when I met you. I thought you are very understated, but you could tell your inner strength right away. It wasn't anything you needed to scream about. It wasn't anything you needed to convince anybody, I can do this or this is who I am. You just were who you were. And I think that's what, within 10 minutes, I was kind of nervous meeting you. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But within 10 minutes, I thought, no, she's like this regular, cool person. And
oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean that.
I'm not usually described as cool, but I'll take it.
Really? I consider myself a relatively cool person. So.
Really?
Oh, well, why do you sound so surprised?
I don't know. I guess, my husband thinks he's cool. There are people who think they're cool.
That is true.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never thought of myself as cool.
Oh, wow. Well, you are. So
well, thank you.
Now you have it. You heard it here first, folks. This is cool. I wanted to tell you this quick story. Whether it makes the podcast or not doesn't matter. But you know how you said when Alex was born and she was colicky and no one would listen to you. And my sister's son was born 4 months to the day before my younger son. So I had Christopher was about a year old at the time, and my sister, I was pregnant as well. She was due a little before me, and she had a baby, and he was like 9 pounds, 9.5 pounds. And when Christopher was born, he had hemangiomas on his body, and they're like, they're nothing. It's okay, they're nothing. We shared the same pediatrician, and when her son, Jake, was born, he had the same thing. And the pediatrician's like, no, it's just like his cousin. He'll grow out of them, it's nothing. But Jake would not stop crying. Christopher was colic for 6 straight months, and when a colicky baby, they
so hard.
scream bloody murder 23 hours a day, and then I cried for 24 hours a day because you're like at your wit's end. So this pediatrician's like, no, he's just like his cousin. It's colic. It's nothing but these inverted birthmarks. He's fine. She kept saying, he's not fine. He's not fine. And she kept going, and she kept calling him. And I remember one Saturday night, she called him and she said, he's not fine. Something is wrong. I know my child. I have 2 older ones. And he said, you're hysterical. And don't ever bother me on a Saturday night. I'm out to dinner.
Hope she got a new doctor.
Well, we both worked at the DA's office at the time, and we had a child abuse unit, of which we were both in, and we had an on-staff pediatrician, and she was also cool. And Ellen was telling her
me.
about this,
Cool
just
like
like you, Liz, just like you. And Ellen was telling her about it, and the pediatrician's like, Ellen, people need to trust parents more.
Yeah.
You know your child. If something's wrong, something's wrong. And Ellen said, I can't get anyone to listen. Pediatrician says, I'm giving you an order for a blood test. Go and get him a blood test. Ellen takes him that day, and the pediatrician calls and says, I'll explain to you in a little bit, but I need you to get Jake in his car seat right now, and you need to head right to Philadelphia. Don't stop for gas. Don't stop to go to the ladies' room. Don't do anything. Don't change him. Put him in the car seat right now and get him to Philadelphia. So Ellen does it. Gets him, is on her way. The doctor calls and says, okay, now that you're on your way and you're settled down, Jake has about 6 hours to live. Ellen said, what are you talking about? And she said, his blood platelets are at like 6,000. They should be at like 350,000. She said his body is eating up his platelets. He's dying. And Ellen said, why would you put me in a car for 2 hours if he only has 6 hours to live? And she said, because no one here will listen to you. You need to get someplace where they will listen to you. They send her to the emergency room at CHOP, and Jake spent, my God, it was weeks and weeks, maybe months, on the oncology ward. Same thing. And Ellen said, why are you putting us on the oncology ward? We don't even know what's wrong with him. Long story short, it turns out he had Kaposi form hemangioma endothelioma, which basically means Kaposi form, it mimics cancer in his body. He doesn't have cancer, but those tumors are mimicking cancer. But they didn't know what it was for weeks. They called every children's hospital around the country. Somebody somewhere said, I've seen that. It was 20 years ago I saw it when I was like a resident or something. You have to treat it as cancer. So Jake spent all this time on the oncology ward at CHOP, and they really,
And he's okay.
Ellen and I cry every birthday of his because no one expected. They had to baptize him in the middle of the night with a married priest and a bottle of Evian water, as Ellen says. I was going to come down. I was 9 months pregnant with my son, and she said, no, you're not going to make it. Don't even bother coming down. He's not going to last the night. So, long story short, Jake is 23 years old.
Oh, that's incredible.
He literally just moved to Philadelphia. Our niece then became a nurse practitioner at CHOP because they saved his life. And we're all so grateful about that. But it almost is your story. And I remember those trips with Ellen back and forth. We're 2.5 hours away. And some days she was just too tired to drive. She said, I can't do it. So Christopher and I would get in the car because Christopher's an entertainer and would entertain Jake the entire way. And we'd sit in the waiting room with them just to make it almost normal for Jake.
Yeah.
And Jake didn't want to be the sick child. He didn't want to be that.
No, and that's so true. The kids, they don't want to be.
No.
They don't want to be. They want to just be
Kid.
kids. She wanted to go to school. Like
Yeah.
most kids hate going to school, but going to school for her was when she was feeling good, which, I mean, she had only finished second grade when she passed away, so she didn't have a lot of years of schooling, but she really wanted to go to school.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways that symbolized to her sort of a healthy, typical
Right.
childhood, which she had never had.
Right, but she knew she wanted it, and she knew how to get it. Even, that's funny. That's so inspiring. We talk about on our podcast. We've had some mothers telling us their stories of how they survived the unthinkable, but now we're talking about how a little girl survived the unthinkable and how she was strong enough and mature enough, and she lived this life in 8 short years. She's amazing to me. She really is.
She
She's
was
to me.
amazing, and
Yeah.
in her life she was amazing, and she was funny, and she was stubborn, and
Yeah.
all the things you might expect a child who
Yeah.
had to live with what she lived with, and also created this incredible legacy. But she also was really someone who had this wisdom that I can, now that I'm, we're past it now, 20 years, I can see it even more than when you're in it. That's just who she was. And
Right.
it was funny and it was inspiring, but it was mostly just like getting through each day. But afterwards, a lot of those lessons that she taught me have really stayed with me. We did call her Grandma a lot of times
really?
because, well, she had a lot of advice for
Yeah.
all of us.
I love that.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe getting it in while she knew she could.
Maybe.
Did she know how sick she was?
That's a hard question. I think she did, but she really didn't like talking about it. When I even tried to talk about it, she would just say, "Yes, I know."
Okay, good.
And she knew how sick she was. She was a fighter. I mean, she wanted to be treated, all the way to the end. She wanted
never
to
once
be treated.
said enough.
No.
No, that's good.
No, she wanted to be treated. She had a lot of, and as did we, but she really, even though she was only 8, because she had been doing it so long, she was probably more like a teenager with the way she would be involved in her care, in her treatment plan. And she did have a lot of requirements, and a list of requirements that became increasingly hard to meet. But things like she really didn't want to stay overnight in the hospital. She didn't want to have to go home with like her port accessed all the time. Yeah. She didn't want to feel sick to her stomach. It was really hard. She did not want to stay in the hospital, so we would go to the hospital in the day and we'd come home at night. And if certain things happened overnight, we would have to bring her in. And this was the 3rd night in a week and a half where she couldn't get to sleep. She had these bloody noses. She had no platelets at this time. And that could become life-threatening because we could not stop. And it was the 3rd time this happened. And that meant we were headed to the ER. She was going to be there all night, and then she was going to need a blood transfusion and be there all the next day. And it was just awful. And she was so sick. And my husband put her in the car, and he turned around and he said, "I'm so sorry, Alex," because there was nothing else we could say to her at that point. And she said, "For what?" And he said, "For everything." And she said, "If there's one thing you should know about me by now, it's that I'm happy for what I have, not unhappy for what I don't have." And it was such a powerful moment because it's very easy to think that when things are going really well for you. Yeah. But to feel that and just say it without hesitation at a moment where things weren't getting better for her. And it was an awful moment. And to feel the way she felt physically and to say that to me was such a gift because I felt like I understood a little bit more of how she got through her life the way she did. And then, of course, as a grieving mom, I would think of that often and think, I really do need to be grateful for what I have, this incredible legacy she left my 3 other kids, so many things you have in your life that are worth being grateful for. And that has never left me. And so her doctor at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia really tried to find new things to try, mostly on compassionate use, and get them approved to try them on her so that we could keep giving her, that hope, and I suppose for ourselves that hope. But it was really about fulfilling her wish to continue to be treated.
Yeah, and fulfilling her wish to do it on her own terms.
Yes.
The port, I'm not staying in the hospital. I mean, she really had her own set of rules, and I'm sure in a quiet manner, had everyone follow them.
Yes, I mean quiet, but
Mighty.
yes.
Was she afraid of anything? All kids
Yes,
are afraid.
for sure. I mean, at different stages of her life, as kids do. I would say she had many dislikes, of things that had to be done at the hospital that she just kind of learned to put up with. Afraid?
Was she afraid of the dark?
I don't know. We're keeping the light on in the hallway kind of people.
Oh, yeah.
So we never, any of our kids still probably sleep with the hallway light on. It never was close the door and turn all the lights off.
Yeah, oh God, no. I mean, you should see this place that night.
So I don't know. She slept on her own a lot. Oftentimes one of us would be in the room, in the bed with her. I'm sure she had fears. I can't believe I can't think of any. I think her bravery is probably, in my mind, overshadowing any small fears
Right.
she had.
Right.
My kids all grew up in some way in it. So our oldest was 2 when she was diagnosed. And he told me, I guess maybe in high school, he's 31 now, that we were talking about first memories. Mm-hmm. And he said his very first memory was going to the hospital and seeing Dad cry for the first time. And then they took him down to a room to get a toy. So it was a real memory. It wasn't something we had even discussed with him.
Right.
So he grew up knowing that Alex had this tumor, as we called it, and that they came to the hospital all the time.
Yeah.
When we were in Connecticut back then, he was allowed to sleep in the room. They had a little trundle bed. So he would sleep over sometimes if he felt like it. And they were, playing or wanted to watch something together.
Yeah.
And they all knew, I think he was the most affected because he was the oldest brother. And I think there's the older brother protectiveness. And he was closer to 10 when she passed away. And the younger ones were 5 and 1. So their experience was a different kind of trauma, but,
Right.
all uniquely different.
Right. But it sounded like he treated her like his sister, not like my sick sister or, I need to take care of my sister. He just treated her like his sister.
It's hard to know how their relationship could have been different because she was always being treated and always had a lot of medical needs. I would say he probably, certainly, whether she had cancer or not, it was more of the protective brother role. I never remember him getting, at least not saying anything, getting mad at her or fighting with her.
Right.
There was always this protectiveness of her and almost like a deep respect for her and what she was going through. And I think he just tried to make her life better and easier, so he would never argue with her. My middle son, because he was younger, they would have fun and play together, but sometimes she would get annoyed at him. He probably didn't reciprocate that much. And then the baby, of course, that was her little boy, but he could also push her buttons once he got to be 9 or 10 months. On purpose, he would start to do things just because he knew that she would have a big reaction, take her things. And I always tease him, his first word was mine.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would sit in this wagon together when we went to the hospital. And, she's 7 years older than him or whatever it was. And he would take her stuff and she'd go, no, that's mine. So then he would just purposely, as he got to that age, grab it and go, mine, mine, mine. Yeah.
That sounds like our Zachary.
The youngest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Christopher had this beloved pirate pillow that we got in a prize at something. And one day Zach went into Christopher's crib, because at that time, they're only 17 months apart, grabs the pillow and goes, mine, and that's it, walks away.
Yeah.
We couldn't pry it out of his hands. We still have that pillow.
Well, and Alex, she thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Because it was so clearly not his, that he just was doing it because...
Get under her skin.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear she had that, that normal sibling relationship, because that's the way it is.
I think as normal as it could be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine it was really hard for them to have a sister who was that sick for such a long part of their early childhood.
Yeah, I think so. Lexi, who is our co-host sometimes, it was her brother who was very sick for a very long time. And she says the same thing, that it was very hard. They would stay back with their dad a lot, and Ellen would have to, would be gone to the hospital and sometimes spend weeks at a time there. And they'd go down and visit and everything, but there was a lot that was missing from there. And to this day, we call Jake the Prince because they treat him like he's the prince. They're very protective of him. They give it to him sometimes, about his outfit or something, but they are very protective of older sisters. So it probably
is he the
would've been-
youngest?
He's the youngest.
Yeah, so that might have been in play anyways, a little bit, I think.
Right, exactly. Right. Now that you got to know Alex, tune in next time to see how Alex's seemingly small idea turned into a national movement to save children. Thanks for listening to Through the Hurricane. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.